Jeff Crilly, welcome to the Star Coach Show.
I am so excited to be here. Thank you, Meg.
I'm so excited to have you. So, I want to tell everybody a little bit about what it was about Jeff that made me want to have Jeff on the show. And so, we're going to go back several years to when I first moved to Texas. I moved to Texas from Michigan, really kicking and screaming, way back in 1989. And as we got to know the area and got to know the news stations and those kinds of things over the years, Jeff Crilly came into our living room every evening as a really dynamic reporter, always very knowledgeable and sort of ethical. Sort of got that sense. And then over the years, Jeff went away, and my husband and I were like, "What happened to Jeff? We love Jeff." And it turns out that Jeff left this 25 years of reporting to start the country's first all journalist PR firm. So when I realized that, I reached out to him. At the time, I was the VP of public relations for the International Coaching Federation North Texas chapter and said, Jeff, would you come talk to coaches about how to get PR, how to get in front of people? Because you all know that I say on a regular basis, you cannot be a secret and be a success. You've got to let people know what it is that you do, the transformation you make. Jeff, being the incredibly generous person that he is, said, yeah, I'll come talk to the coaches. So he came and did a lunch for us in at the North Texas chapter, and it was so helpful, and people were so excited about it. And that shows me that like Jeff gets in front of people all the time. He's on CNN, he's on ABC, he's on Fox, he's on whatever. He's everywhere, and that's what he does. He teaches other people how to do that. So who wouldn't want that to happen on their show? I want that to happen on my show. So Jeff is an award-winning reporter. He's an award-winning just individual who does great work. Recently, I was on Valerie Sokolowski's podcast, and her studio is in Jeff's building. It's Jeff's studio. So I went and did that. Jeff and I reconnected. He said, "Come on my show." So I said, "Absolutely." So I've been recently on the Jeff Curley show as well. And then I said, "Okay, turnaround is fair play. I want you on my show." So that's kind of a long intro because I just respect this man so much. And we had this great long talk about all the things that coaches need to know. And that's how come I said, could you come and share that information with my audience? So
Well,
as before, right before we dive into all of that, I just want to remind all of you, wherever you're listening to the Star Coach Show, be sure to subscribe so you never miss a minute of the content that we have. If you're here on YouTube, be sure to subscribe and leave a comment. Jeff would love to know what it is that he shares that resonates with you. And I'd like to know as well. So with that, I would once again love to welcome Jeff to the show. Jeff, sorry that I went on and on, but
no,
you're
no.
amazing, and I wanted everybody to know that you're amazing.
It's a beautiful introduction, and thank you so much. It was a thrill having you on my show, and a bigger thrill to be on your show. So thank you. This is my land. These are my people. I mean, when I think about the people that I minister to, and I consider my work a ministry, is it's the small business owner. Many of the people watching the show, they may be solopreneurs. They might not have a team. They're trying to get themselves out there. But the truth is you can get yourself on Fox and CNN all by yourself. You don't need a PR firm. And confession, I own a PR firm. So here's a PR guy saying you don't need a PR guy. And in fact, Meg, if you'll share after the show posts my email address, I will send all of your viewers my free ebook. So I wrote a book in 2002 called Free Publicity, a TV Reporter Shares the Secrets for Getting Covered on the News. I ended up selling 70,000 copies of this book by running around giving speeches, 300 speeches a year for 6 straight years, in addition to my TV job. Breakfast speech, lunch speech, go to work at Channel 4. Breakfast speech, lunch speech, go to work at Channel 4. So I ended up selling all these books. And so meeting pearl number one is if you really want to get yourself out there, you have to speak. I love the Rotary clubs. I love chambers of commerces. They always need speakers. Just invite yourself to speak. In Dallas, if you happen to be watching in Dallas, there are 60 Rotary clubs on the Dallas side of the Metroplex. There's another 40 on the Fort Worth side of the Metroplex. Each one of them needs 52 speakers a year. So you could keep yourself very busy just speaking to Rotary clubs. And what I discovered when I was out hitting the circuit is people who join Rotary tend to join other things. So after the speech was over, sometimes people would come up to me and say, "Hey, I'm on the board of the Texas Bankers Association. Do you travel? Could we fly you to Austin to speak at our convention next year?" So speaking ends up getting you other opportunities. And I don't want to go on a soliloquy here, Meg,
No,
because
but I love that.
your
I
show.
love the fact that really and truly, if you think about what we do as coaches, we are helping people meet their goals. But I've yet to meet a coach who like was born yesterday. They tend to have had many different careers or have moved up into leadership. So we all have our own expertise. And that's going to be what attracts people to us when we're able to talk about it in a way that resonates with our ideal audience, that they're like, oh, I want more of what Jeff has, or I want more of whatever you're offering. And speaking, I think, is probably one of the best ways for coaches to get out of get the basket out from your light. Get that basket off your light and just shine. And you can shine in coach. And so let me ask you this, Jeff. As you were doing breakfast, lunch, and meetings each, however, a bunch, um, was it the same talk again and again? Because that's what I think sometimes coaches are like, I don't have time to make 350 different talks. Well, you don't have to. It's
Right?
your,
You don't. Like, okay, if you went to Taylor Swift's Eras tour, she's got a playlist. She's going to play the same, you know, 24 songs on each one of these tours. What I challenge myself to do is to make it unique, that even if somebody had heard my speech before, that it wasn't the same cookie cutter speech. So what I started to do was develop other stories. So if I can spend a couple minutes on what makes a great
that's
speech
great.
is Haagen-Dazs and broccoli. So the Haagen-Dazs is the rich, creamy ice cream. We love it. It tastes good. So a great speech is Haagen-Dazs, little bit of broccoli. Haagen-Dazs, little bit of broccoli. Haagen-Dazs, little bit of broccoli. Q&A, standing ovation. That's the whole speech. So you start to think to yourself, okay, if I want this to be a successful speech, what are the three big points I'm trying to make? And if I'm going to make these points, those are the broccoli. I got to have a rich, creamy ice cream to go along with that broccoli. So you can either orchestrate a speech by thinking of your best three stories ever and then figure out what the moral of the story is, or you can say, what are the 3 points I want to make? And do I have a story that exemplifies that? It simplifies the speech. I mean, you don't have to go to Chat GPT to write you a speech. Just go back through your life and say, what are the points that I want to make? And
Yes.
why am I so passionate about that? You know, what life did I touch that made me want to share this story? So anyway, the art of a speech is really connecting with your audience on a heart level. So what I started to do is go in and shake hands before the speech. I started to meet people. And I would say, hey, I'm your speaker today. My speech is called Marketing Without Money. Have you ever tried to get yourself on the news? Have you ever been on the news? And then I would just kind of poll the audience, and I would have two or three stories, and I'd say, oh wow, you got on the news. Okay, tell me how you got on the news. Okay, and your name is Fred. So during the speech, sometimes I was trying to make a
Weave
point.
that in.
Yeah, it was beautiful. I'd say, now I don't know this. I mean, I'm not the smartest guy in the room. Fred knows this. Fred, come on up here. You always keep control of the mic. You never give it to Fred. But I interviewed Fred. I said, Fred, you were on the news one time. Tell me how that happened. So the spotlight came off of me, went on to Fred. When it came back to me, the audience actually liked me better. It was really incredible. And so in the speaking world, there's keynotes, there's workshops, and there's something called a key shop. A key shop is bringing in a workshop into your keynote speech. And I found it's a very effective way to endear yourself to the audience because everybody knows Fred. They don't know you. You're the stranger. So by bringing Fred into the light and putting a spotlight on
Kind
Fred,
of making him a bit of the hero of the story.
right. And then suddenly
Hmm.
when the light comes back to me, they like me more. So we can, you and I
Hmm.
could, we could do another hour on just public speaking. But I would say for any of the speakers and coaches who are on this, watching this interview, if you're not speaking, you're missing out on $1 million a year. And that's not an exaggeration. You can be $1 million speaking a speaker by getting out there, not necessarily waiting for the speaker's fee, but you
Right.
get so many clients from the audience that it could be $1 million career if you're out there marketing your services all the time.
Love that. So just to recap, the story is the Haagen-Dazs. The moral of the story or the point you're trying to make is the broccoli. So you've
Yeah,
got to have these beautiful stories that connect with people, but it's the what's the message? You want to be sure that you're delivering that message. Love. Now, I'm kind of grossed out by ice cream on top of broccoli, but other than that, I think that
great.
that was beautiful. Thank you. Thank you so much for that. So you mentioned are you getting on the news? And that really that circuit that you did was, getting that publicity for free by getting your expertise out there. So tell us a little bit about maybe even just that concept of getting onto the news.
Sure. So if I think about the people who might be watching this right now, you probably have leadership coaches, you probably have lifestyle coaches, health and nutrition coaches, workplace culture.
Relationship coaches,
Relationship.
exactly.
Yeah.
Workplace culture, exactly.
So all they have to do is they have to kind of pay attention to the news. And the reason I say that is there's a feeding frenzy every day. Like if you turn on the news right now at the time that we're taping this, Meg, the big story is Israel. The big story is we just got off the presidential debate. The big story is the port strike. So all you're
Hmm.
saying to yourself as a coach is, okay, if I'm trying to get myself on the news, does the media care about me right now? And I need to be able to pounce when the media cares about me. So even if you hate watching the news, and I get it, it's gotten pretty negative. If I didn't have a PR firm, I probably wouldn't watch the news. But because I need to bird dog story ideas for my clients, I'm always tuned into what is the media buying today. So
Hmm.
for you, Meg, and I'm sorry to flip this around on you, you're a leadership coach. Is that
That's
a
correct. Hmm.
so there are leadership questions all the time. So let's take the port strike. Okay, for the workers to go out on strike, there's probably a leadership question there. And I'm not trying to take sides here, but
No.
how does the communication breakdown get so severe that
Hmm.
the unions are empowered with the idea that we're going to walk out and cripple the economy. I mean, really, it's not
Right.
just impacting their bosses, it's crippling the economy if they stay out
Hmm.
more than a week or so. So you actually could get into the news right now, Meg, talking about CEOs everywhere should be watching this strike because there's a lesson in here for every single CEO in the country. You can't let a disagreement or not seeing each other's point of view get to the point where
Right.
they're ready to
We
walk.
can't be so tunnel vision that we don't see one another and then we can't work together and communication breaks down. And
Yeah,
anytime there's a communication breakdown, everybody suffers from that. It
yeah,
doesn't matter whether we believe we're right. Are we being effective? Are we running our businesses?
yes, and having empathy and all those things that you coach.
Right.
So, for you, if you wanted to get on the news right now, as long as this port strike is going on, you could actually
Hmm.
start with WBAP or KRLD here in Dallas. You call them up. You call up the newsroom. I mean, it's a bold move, but you're calling up the newsroom saying, "Hey, listen, I'm watching this port strike unfold, and it's horrific." I mean, this could end up crippling our country, going into a recession, God forbid, and it could have all been avoided if the two sides had been on the same page. I'm a leadership coach. I coach CEOs all the time on having empathy for their employees and making sure that they
Mhm.
understand the journey that their employees are going through right now. And so I would love to come on your air, KRLD, WBAP, and share with your listeners, here are the lessons that every CEO in the country can learn from watching this debacle.
Beautiful example. Thank you for that. I think that that's going to really resonate with everybody who's listening. Like, oh, I look for what's broken or what the country's struggling with, what's showing up on the news, and then look through my like how can I and what I loved about what you said was that it isn't just like this is how to solve this issue. This is what every CEO needs to be thinking about to be, leading their organization through empathy and communication and to avoid big issues like this.
Amen. Yeah.
Love that.
I love it. So one takeaway is pay attention to the news because there are feeding frenzies that happen every day. They build and then they dissipate. They build and they dissipate. And so the key is to catch the beginning of the wave. If you can jump into the process at the beginning of the wave, you can just coast that thing for days or weeks sometimes. The other
And you make the reporter's job easier, right? Because the reporter needs somebody. So they're going to be looking for somebody. It's almost like you're knocking on their door at the time that they need you. Well, it's
absolutely.
exactly like you're knocking at the door at the time that they need you.
Well, and one of the points that I make in my book, and again, if you share my contact information with your audience,
Love that.
I will send each one of them a free ebook, is making sure that not only are you paying attention to the news and jumping into the process when they care about you, but also uh, taking advantage of slow news days. So one of the chapters in my book is the slow news day theory. It must be a slow news day. And I remember people would say that to me. I would show up at their house and they would roll their eyes and they'd say, it must be a slow news day. Um, so I started to look at slow news days and I said to myself, okay, why is it that every time we come close to like Thanksgiving or Christmas or New Year's, things get really slow in the news business? And so I came up with this theory. I never read it in any other book. I said, okay, half of all news comes from the government. So let's take Thanksgiving week. We'll be here in 8 weeks. Thanksgiving week. Okay, when does America as a country begin mailing it in? I would submit Monday or Tuesday. I mean, the whole week is a wash, isn't it? But
Right. Oh, absolutely.
certainly by Tuesday afternoon, like nobody's doing anything, right? So no news is being created by the government, and the government creates half of the news. Think about it. No school stories that week, no court stories, no city hall stories, no county stories, no federal stories. So everybody goes on vacation, and then the other large source of news is corporate America. So the Frito-Lays and the Exxons of the world say to their PR team, hey, we're not doing anything this week. Do not send out press releases because there's nobody here to answer the questions. So what happens is, Meg, the news kind of like they become they're starving. I mean, think
Right.
about
But they still have to do a new nightly show every single night,
every
whether
single
whether
night.
it's a holiday or not.
Yeah, like my old news station, Channel 4, believe it or not, they begin broadcasting at 4 in the morning. They go till 9 a.m. That's 5 solid hours of news in the morning. And then I think they have an hour-long newscast at noon. And then they go from 5 to 6:30, and then they go from 9 to 10:30. I mean, I'm
A
not a
lot of
mathematician, but
news that you
that's
have to
yeah,
report.
that's like 10 hours of news. So like then they don't, I mean, you've never seen Clarice Tinsley come on the TV screen and say, I'm sorry, folks, there's no news today,
It's
nothing.
a slow news day night.
Here's Gilligan's Island. You can't do that because they sold the commercials. So they're going to have to come up with news no matter what's going on in the world. And so I tell my clients, instead of like other PR firms, they kind of like send out their holiday cards. I say to my clients, get your running shoes on. We're going to get busy because when all the other PR firms go to sleep, we're going to get you out there. So I think all of the coaches on this call, start circling those big weeks. I mean, the Thanksgiving week is obvious. The last 2 weeks in December are very slow. I would suggest
Yes.
The slowest week of the year is Christmas to New Year's. I mean, truly think about that. Congress is not in session. You won't hear anything from Biden. I mean, it's going to be a very, very slow news week. And that also becomes the week of New Year's resolutions. And so everybody's going to, pledge to be more productive or lose weight or, I mean, all of
All the
these
kinds
things.
of things that you coach too. Yes.
So, so then you have to have the courage to announce yourself as the expert and actually call the TV station or radio station and say, "Hey, I'm the expert." And you notice I said call because I think too many emails are going through these days. And so if you really think about sales, if I wanted to sell something and you have three options, face to face, on the phone, by email, the most effective would be face to face. I mean, if you could show up at the lobby of Channel 8 and buy the Anchor coffee, that would be ideal. Chances are that's not going to happen. Second best way to sell on the phone. They can hear your passion, they can hear your sound bites, they start to connect with you, they start to say to themselves, wow, this Meg is great. She's like a soundbite machine. Everything she's saying, I could see myself putting on the news. Least effective way to communicate, email. We call that spam. We all get it. We all get it. We just don't open it. We don't really read it. And these days, the newsrooms, my old station, Channel 4, is getting 3,500 emails a day just to the main, news assignment desk. Well, nobody can read 3,500 emails. That's like Harry Potter times five. So
Right.
they just delete them all. So I go old school. I say, these days with Google, you could actually Google Channel 5 Dallas port strike. See if there's anyone covering the port strike for Channel 5. And if you found a reporter's name, you actually call them up and you say, hey, I saw the story you did last night, and you can watch this online these days 24/7. I saw the story you did last night for 10. I actually coach on this. If you're doing a follow-up story, I'd love to talk to you about leadership lessons learned from how the CEOs of these different companies allowed the port strike to happen. Here's takeaway number one, two, and three. And then they're basically saying, wow, I think that fits because we're going to be doing more port stories and might as well use Meg.
Love that. Love, love, love that. So now, what's the biggest mistake that people, because you just have laid out a beautiful roadmap.
Thank you.
I'm guessing that one of the mistakes might be I'm just going to send an email, but I don't know. So what would you say is the biggest
So
mistakes?
another mistake that people make is they write these press releases that are very self-serving. So if Meg hired a PR firm, what the PR firm would do, Meg, is they would write this press release to serve you. They would say, nationally renowned coach, leadership coach, Meg says this, blah blah blah. It's very selly.
Meg focused instead
Yeah,
of
Meg.
audience. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so the job of the journalist is not to give you publicity. Publicity is actually a byproduct of the journalist doing their job. They're going to do the story on the port strike, and oh, by the way, Meg's going to get some attention because we're using her as our expert. So if you put the spotlight on the message instead of the messenger, you win. And so we always have clients. I've run this firm now for 16 years. Clients will come to me and they'll say, "Hey, can you put out a press release?" And that always like as soon as they say put out a press release, I already like my hairs on the back of my neck stick up because I know what happens to press releases. And so I say, okay, well, we of course we can write press releases. Anybody can write a press release. What is the goal of the press release? Is the goal of the press release to get on the news or just to put something out so Google can find it? And when I narrow it down to, yeah, no, we really want to be on the news, I'm like, okay, well, then you don't even need a press release. We just need to put you in front of the right journalists. So I have kind of an unfair advantage, Meg, and I think you when you and I met at my studio not long ago, I shared with you. I put out an email that goes out to 29,000 journalists every single day. I haven't missed a single day in 16 years, not Christmas Day, not New Year's Day for 16 years. It's a tip sheet. It basically says to journalists, hey, listen, here's a former news guy who scoured the internet looking for the best, resources for all these stories, and here it is. So every time I press send, it goes out to 29,000 journalists, and these journalists trust me. They say, well, the last 50 people we booked from Curly's tip sheet were good, so why wouldn't Meg be good? So I'm not saying that you need to hire me. I'm saying if you wanted to do it yourself, you actually have to pay attention to the news. You have to look at who are the reporters who would care about what I speak about. And then you actually have to build a relationship with them. I remember one relationship that I built began with somebody sending me a message on Facebook saying, Jeff, you should wear blue more often. It makes your eyes pop. I swear to God. So, I mean, I'm like, wow, that was very kind.
That's an interesting tip. Thank you.
So, so, so I thanked this person and
And went
oh,
out and bought a bunch of blue
I
shirts.
did. I went from like one blue shirt every week to five blue shirts every week. And I was wearing blue all the time. So, but anyway, as she was, I think she was probably setting the stage for the relationship that would develop. Where now we're talking. Now I trust her, and then she says, "Hey Jeff, I have this story. I think this might be newsworthy. What do you think about this?" And if you get a journalist to like you, what happens is, okay, you toss the ball towards the basket, you it's not going to go in. But with the journalist's help, they're going to say, no, here you go, Meg. Boom,
Yeah.
it's in the
Yeah.
basket because I like you. I mean, the pitch wasn't perfect, but here's what I can do to make that ball go in the basket. So about half the time that I was a news reporter, I was putting the ball in the basket for the PR firm just because I liked the people. They seemed nice, they seemed respectful. So as long as you begin with praise, I mean, that's my my the Achilles heel of all reporters is praise. They just love it. So sometimes a great subject line, if you were to write a email to someone, even to get them on the phone, is great story exclamation point. Okay, they don't know if you're complimenting them on a story that they did, if it's or a story that you're pitching. And then what I would do is I would hide the lead, especially if this is the first time you ever contacted this reporter. I would say, hey, listen, um, I listen to you every day on KRLD. You do such a great job. Whether it's a funny story or a serious story, you do such a great job. And I can't imagine filling 3 hours every single day, and waking up at 2 in the morning. God bless you. You're a very dedicated journalist. Hey, I have a story. It's a follow-up to a story you've done in the past. Call me back when you get a second. I promise it'll take less than 2 minutes. Okay, what you did was, I know who you are. I know what you report on. I'm a fan. I mean, their husband might not have listened to their newscast. I mean, all journalists want fans. So they call you back and you begin with their favorite subject, which is themselves. And you say, thank you so much for calling me back. I know how busy you must be. I promise I'll keep this to less than 2 minutes, but I listen to you every morning. You really, you're like a cup of coffee in the morning. I can't get up without you. Okay. Flattery gets you everywhere. Then you, then you slide into the pitch and you say, hey, listen, I know you're covering the port strike and you're starting to talk about industries that are being affected by this. I'm a leadership expert, and I would love to talk about what every CEO in America can learn from this port strike. So you started with flattery and you're sliding into the pitch. And if you're on the phone with them, it becomes let's make a deal. And what I mean by let's make a deal is I'm selling this. Are you buying this? And then the reporter says, okay, well, I'm not exactly buying that, but could you also talk about workplace culture? So, not just putting this on the CEO, but, Meg, are you able to talk about workplace culture? Because they've got me doing something on, okay, so you're,
Yeah.
you're, you're playing let's make a deal and you're finding the right angle. And then what I discovered is that journalists I'm not going to say lazy because that's demeaning to the journalists. I'm going to say they're creatures of habit. So once Meg jumps into the Rolodex of channel 4, 5, 8, and 11 in Dallas as a leadership expert, they call you up again, sometimes out of the middle of nowhere, saying, "Hey, Mark Zuckerberg did this. Elon Musk said this. I see that we've interviewed you in the past as a leadership expert. Meg, can we have you come on this afternoon at 4:30 and talk about the latest thing that Elon Musk tweeted?" Anyway,
Beautiful. So beautiful. Oh my gosh, it's so clear that you are passionate about this. You've got such great tips. One of the things that I know that you have moved into now is you've got these studios that allow people to get their expertise out through podcasting. Obviously, we're sitting right here doing a podcast as well. So, podcasting has really exploded, and it's a great way to be able to have a platform to connect and give to your community, give to your audience, and then potentially convert into, clients as well. So,
yeah,
um, let's spend just a few minutes, if it's okay with you. I know we
of course.
around podcasting. What do you want people to know about the value of podcasting?
Thank you. Meg, obviously the proof is in the pudding. You're doing a podcast and it's a great way for you to meet people and influence people and share your message and your guest message. So what we did as a company is we looked at the whole podcast industry and we said, how come everybody's doing it at home? Because everybody who starts a show, actually, they want to be the host. They really don't want to edit. So let's suppose, Meg, I said something on this show that I regretted. And then after the show, I called you up and I said, "Meg, can you edit that out? I probably really shouldn't have said that." Well, that's kind of a hassle for Meg. I mean, I don't even know if you know how to edit. I don't. I own a network, so I don't have to edit. So but then you would have to go in there or hire somebody to go in there and carve out that question that you asked that Crilly now wants out of the show. So we looked at the whole industry and we said, you know what? What if we gave commercial television to podcasters? And I know you're sharing these links, but launchashow.com is our website for our podcast studios. We've spent $2 million dollars on television studios. Now, my studios are now prettier than anything this side
They're
of the.
gorgeous. I've
Thank you.
been to one and it was gorgeous.
Thank you. I mean, an unbelievable shift in the way I think people are going to be looking at podcasting in the coming years. 100% of the people who started a podcast want to be the host. They really didn't want to edit. So, shameless commercial, 500 bucks. People come in, spend 500 bucks with us, sit on our anchor desk, sit in the Oprah studio, interview people. We edit it, polish it, add in graphics, and send it out to all the video platforms: YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, iHeart, iTunes, Spreaker, Spotify, all the audio platforms for 500 bucks. If you went to Channel 8 to try and get the same thing done, Meg, they're going to charge you $20,000. So this division is actually in hyper growth right now. We're now producing 190 different TV shows. Those aren't episodes, those are 190 different clients who come in, sit down, interview people, and leave. We now have studios in Dallas, Fort Worth, South Lake, and Austin. But you asked a question about why would you do a podcast and how can you turn it into money? And that's my favorite subject to talk about. You can turn it into money if you're interviewing people who later end up hiring you or referring you to all of their friends. So, Meg, I'm looking at you and I'm looking at your audience. There are clients right now who are walking around with a headache. They don't know they need Meg's Tylenol, right? Problem number one is they don't even know they have a headache. But even if they did know they have a headache, they don't know to buy Meg's Tylenol. So one of the things that I'm passionate about is get face to face with someone who has a headache. And then after the show, you say, "Hey, listen, the most innocent way to ask for business is to ask for advice." So you just interviewed them on your show, Meg. You already probably identified some pain points. They said they're a quick growing company, which means they may have some, retention issues. They may have some leadership issues where they promoted this person from head salesperson to now leading a division. So you're identifying all of these problems for them. And in I call it the after party is right after the show. You're saying to the person who is on your show, hey, listen, I need your advice. And I think that's a very innocent ask. As soon as you say, I need your advice, it puts them up here and you down here. Everybody loves to give advice. So you say to this person who was just on your show, hey, listen, thank you for sharing your heart. I mean, a lot of people come on and they tease and they don't give away information. I loved what you did on my show with giving so many valuable points. So I need your advice because I'm doing a lot of coaching these days on leadership issues. Do you know anyone whose company is growing so fast that processes are breaking? Or their C-suite. They have this hotshot salesperson or saleswoman or salesman who was great at sales, but suddenly they got lifted up into the position of leading a team, and that's not their skill set. Their skill set is sales. It's not leading a team. If you know of anybody in your universe that might need a leadership coach to come in, look under the hood, see what's working, see what's not working, see how we can change out a couple of wires so the engine doesn't explode. I would love to know, I would love an introduction. It's a very innocent ask, Meg. And you can see how that could actually, the person you just interviewed could raise their hand and say, wow, Meg, you just described me. Yes, we are starting to have some processes break down. What does an engagement look like? If I hired you to coach a member of my team, what would that look like? And now now
Mm-hmm.
it's
Now the
you're
conversation has changed.
it has changed. So it's the
Mm-hmm.
ability to get to know anybody you want to get to know for the rest of your life. And I love that. That's why most days I'm doing 3 Jeff Crilly shows. I'm not doing the shows to see myself on TV. I would have just stayed at Channel 4. I'm doing the shows because it's a great way to meet people. And then I can honestly say, even if it doesn't turn into a financial relationship, the guest that you had on the show is proud of the show. So they shared across their platforms as you did. And in your case, you actually said, "Hey Jeff, why don't you come on my show and and talk to my coaches about your services?" So a friendship develops kind of out of thin air
Mm-hmm.
from a podcast. So I know you're running up against a deadline, but I think every one of your coaches needs to consider doing a podcast. And if they'd like a free tour, I mean, we give tours Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. If anybody on this call is from Dallas Fort Worth, just hit me up, and I'd love to give you a tour of our studios.
So nice. So, Jeff, we were able to look at how we don't necessarily have to hire a PR firm, even though you have a PR firm, to be able to, you gave great tips to
Thank you.
get our word out. And the other thing that we didn't really emphasize is be of service. That is being of service to the community. It's being of service, it's giving people something to think about. It's a way to show value to maybe get value back. But regardless of whether you get that back, you're giving. So I love that. And then the whole concept. I mean, we could do a whole nother show about like podcasting. You also mentioned maybe doing a whole nother show about speaking because we also talked about speaking. Jeff is the gift that just keeps giving. So with that, I am so grateful that you brought your expertise to my audience because we all know we can't be a secret and be a success. And Jeff just gave us incredible information to think about how are we getting our word out there. So thank you, Jeff, for joining us.
You're amazing. God bless you.
Oh, thank you. So, for all of you, remember that the Star Coach Show goes live every Wednesday. We're always leaning into what you need to be a better coach, a better leader, to get the world to know about what it is that you do. So, the strategies, tools, and resources are coming at you every Wednesday. And remember that we're all here on this earth to do the lifting together. So, be kind to yourself, be kind to others and we'll see you next week. This is Meg Rentschler with the Star Coach Show.